So as students, you're doing research courses. Most of your courses will involve some form of research. Your 5101 course is involving researching the movie Boy and applying theories to it and analysing it. That's basic research. As students in an undergrad context, you are not to go and interview young people and get their stories and write those into your assignments. Because we actually are bound in an academic environment by a much bigger code of ethics. It's called the Research Code of Ethics. We don't have a document at all. We just have 3 key principles. You'll find that these are also in the Aratahi Code of Ethics. The first one is informed consent. If you're a researcher and you're working with people, you need to have their consent that they're part of the research. It's the same with young people and strengths-based practice. If young people are working with you, you need to have their consent that they actually want to work with you, they want to do what you're doing. Okay? The next one is no harm, and I'll explain why these seem so basic. They seem like principles of life, but there's a reason for this. No harm means that a young person will not be hurt at all in the process of the information being gathered about them, or the research subject won't be. And the third one is confidentiality or anonymity. Anonymity is when you do a survey and it says at the end, everything about you will be anonymous. That means me, the researcher, do not know who you are. That you could be in a room of 10 people and 100 people filled out the survey, but one of you in a room of 10 filled it out. There's no way I'd know who you are. I've got no access to your name, no identifiers, okay? No name, age, sexuality, the sort of stuff that will make me go, yeah, I know exactly who that is. That's Brooke from Wainoemata. Okay? The other thing is confidentiality. Confidentiality is when a researcher gathers information, but they do know who you are. And that can happen in a survey as well. So I could have surveyed the whole BYD and I know all the students' names. So there's a slight chance that, Sam, you make a complaint about the fact that I wear sneakers. It's really terrible that one of our tutors wear sneakers, and I know that Sam doesn't like me wearing sneakers, so I can actually work out who she is from her response. Making it confidential means that I will make her response so clouded when I'm writing that no one will be able to work out who she is. I know who she is, but not the reader. They're really, really basic. The only reason why they exist is because in order, and you'll get this from me next year in your research paper, and I'll show you the actual examples, so I'm just briefly going to go into it now. In the past, in order to understand humans, researchers have hurt humans. Massively. We're talking Nazi Germany concentration camps and scientific experiments. No informed consent. The loss of organs, permanent harm, no confidentiality, no anonymity. Everything's recorded in a book. We're talking 1950s and 60s and 70s, Marshall Islands in the Pacific, where the American government wanted to experiment with nuclear testing, and the people were living on the land. The American government got by just saying they're savages. And today we're still experiencing the effects of nuclear fallout in those places and cancer that has actually become generational. These are experiments. We're talking 1980s in New Zealand, when women would go to the doctors because they thought they might have something wrong with their insides, they might have cervical cancer, and they were diagnosed with cervical cancer. But a particular doctor decided that for some women he would give them some drugs, and for some women he would give them something that was nothing but a Panadol. And he didn't ask their permission. Women in New Zealand died from cancer just for this one doctor's pursuit of knowledge. We're talking 1960s in the United States. This is been made famous in several movies called The Experiment, all different versions, one the German one, which is the most interesting of them, where a scientist wanted to know what made people evil. So we got 2 groups of students, and we'll look at this next year. They all gave their informed consent in this one. So they knew exactly what they were doing. They were going to be in a simulated prison.
Yeah.
One group would be turned into guards, the other group would be turned into prisoners. The experiment was meant to go for a month. By the end of a week, one of the prisoners had been under the conditions that he had been faced, he became very psychotic. And the researcher himself said the biggest problem in all of this was that I was part of my own experiment, and I saw that the game was happening, and I just ramped it up and ramped it up and ramped it up. We're talking a little baby at the beginning of the century. Very tiny little baby. I can't even remember what his name was. But someone wanted to experiment with Skinner's ideas of behaviouralism, which you have seen in the ideas of Bandura. And the idea that if you expose someone to something and you reward them or you scare them, then you're going to permanently cause something. So this little baby was introduced to a fluffy bunny again and again. Now, there's no way a baby would give informed consent. And then, once the baby would put its hands out for the bunny, they would strike a massive bell right next to that baby's ear that would terrify the baby. By the end of this experiment, the baby was scared of Easter bunnies, kittens, anything that little babies think is cute. This baby was terrified. And I'd hate to think, if they called it little baby John Watson, I'd hate to think what that baby's life was like after that. Because when you permanently inbreed fear into something, you just don't know what's going to happen for the rest of their life. It's very hard to undo damage. These are all experiments done in the name of finding out more about what makes us human. And it wasn't until the 1990s, 1980s actually across the world, that researchers decided, well, maybe we need to have some principles. But what I know as a researcher is that there are some questions that are really damaging too. And that's why we say you can't actually even just engage in interviews with students. I know that there are ways that you can ask questions, and there are ways that you can ask questions that are damaging. For example, asking a young person around suicidality, what methods would they consider, is one of the most dangerous questions you can ask as a researcher. It's like asking a kid, we talked about suicidality and information already, but it's like telling a kid, here are all these techniques of taking drugs. Which one sounds like the coolest? Putting the ideas in the head. So we know, those of us who've been trained in research knows that there's ways that you gather information, there's ways that you don't. It's really interesting stuff in my whakapapa as a researcher.